Good morning once again. We're continuing our agenda. This is the technical session number 4, modern status of replenishment of the mineral base of the Russian Federation. We start for the presentation, which to be made by Oleg Kazanov from GIMS. Thank you. Good morning. Well, I don't know what should I start with, but I will share with you some of my idea of WIMS, our company, in terms of the prospects of development of exploration in Russia. Since, well, the way we feel it, the co-authors of the presentation is a team of analytical and the head of the analytical center of WIMS. I believe that you know these people remotely, so to speak, because you see the results of their activities in the form of state federal programs of strategic development, a variety of documents. On top of that, the state presentation is the epitome of our activity in terms of analysis of the mineral resources. But on the other hand, we are not only the organization supplying to the government analytical center, but we are by ourselves is a large geological exploration organization, and we do some study of core and like that. So we understand, we have hands-on experience of how it really operates and ability to combine two types of activities within one scientific center gives us a chance to have a 3D vision of the process. And I would like to share with you some of the ideas resulting from this 3D vision. Availing myself of this opportunity, I think we can speak freely. Let us figure that you are a federal bureaucrat from the Ministry of Geology, and you are speaking to another colleague about the results of your activities. You will present this kind of a diagram. In this case, this is the number of licenses issued in the Russian Federation over a certain period of time, and we will say that we introduced in 2014 the new method of application of licenses. The line is going up while developing. This diagram is divided into two types of application methods, and all the growth over the last 7 years is provided for by the first type of application process. Let us look now at the how it is translated into money. So in terms of the exploration, you see constant growth of investment in the exploration. From 2014, we have more and more cases of application of the second type of license, and licenses for exploration is issued not in accordance with the first principle, and the second type of application process replaces the process of geological study of subsoil. Well, we can look at this diagram and see how much money was invested. So if you look at the left-hand side, you will see on the right-hand side diagram presents your translation of the left side data into using deflator. But you look, show the next diagram physical volumes of investments, and this is drilling in terms of the thousand of meters drilled. So this shows you the intensity of exploration that is objectively growing over drilling related to the projects licenses obtained through the second type. So this is the second type of application, and this is becoming one of the key drivers of the growth of exploration in the Russian Federation. In this slide, you see a description of this second principle of application for licenses. Well, you see the number of licenses keeps on growing due to alluvial deposits. By itself, it is a stimulating method. There are other methods which are associated with this method, like propagation of the principle of free licenses of objects with the resources under the category P1 and P2 in the Nordic areas. This intensifies these licenses in terms of the number of licenses issued. And to the right-hand side, you see with a time representation of the financing which company can attract for to perform under the licenses which they receive under principle number 2, method number 2. So a question now arises: how many sites we need for licensing? And the left upper value, the green line, shows us a yearly demand of how many licenses were issued per year using application process number 2. So the demand is not perhaps the right term, because demand is twice as much, because 50% of applications were rejected, but even those which were satisfied are enormous in numbers. And the two lower graphs shows us which of the sites were supported of the issues. The license was supported with the P1 and P3 resources. We take the availability of such resources as a manifestation of the fact that the government provides certain foundation before it issues a license. That means that a particular site is ready for exploration. And if we look at the general sampling, and if we look even at the sampling, say, cleared from alluvial, so 70–80% licenses are issued without any prognostic say resource. But this is a fact of life. And it appears so that the government, as an agent of exploration, is not required by the developer of mineral resources. So one can think in terms of using federal budget resources to do some exploration work, and there are some exploration activities funded through this channel. That's true. And also prospecting work is also done in terms of using a federal budget money. There is a big gap between what government can make available and what the subsoil user can use. So now we have to think and ask ourselves questions whether the government should be engaged in the exploration. And it appears that the government should step aside a little bit, go into regional operations, so like a terminating phase, which will be conducted now under the name prognostic metallurgic work, and which would be resulting in preparation of the area for exploration and for prospecting, rather than prospecting exploration per se. The next question, application method number 2. Who works? When this application method was introduced, the motivation was as follows. Well, they used to say that in this country we lack junior companies, because for real juniors, the number one, the applicable method of application for licenses is difficult to accomplish. And if you introduce a more simplified method, number 2, then everyone will become agitated, activated, and will, after juniors companies have completed the initial phase of work, they will sell these licenses to major companies, as it is the case in Canada and some other countries. So we have two diagrams. On the left-hand side, we see, on the top, we see the number of licenses issued, and on the bottom, the financing. The division of the graphs gives us as to what kind of subsoil users uses application method number 2. Well, the first group are large holdings. You would not be able to call the Polus as a junior, and companies with operation licenses who are subsoil users. Well, they are not juniors at all. And the green color stands for junior companies, and part of these companies can be taken into account as companies which are part of the beginning companies. So this is a company which is not engaged in exploration. So if we look at the number of licenses, then we see that there is a parity of licenses issued by under method number 1. And when we look at the types of alluvial gold, but when we see who invested, of course, money is invested, it was invested by major companies, not juniors. This is a situation which applies to alluvial gold, alluvial deposits. These are the remaining deposits which are core licenses. The number of licenses is more or less on a parity basis. As far as financing is concerned, we can say that juniors finance between 4 to 17%, but generally it's less than 10% of the total financing of licenses issued under application method number 2. So when we introduce application method number 2, we will say that we should stimulate exploration and would give birth to the junior movement. But as of now, this intention was implemented to the extent of 50%. We have not yet given birth to a large number of junior companies, but they have appeared, of course. But still, we have simplified the process for larger companies, for majors, in terms of obtaining licenses. This is what has happened. And there are objective reasons for this. We discussed it in several cases. Juniors, of course, are those, flowers which cannot flourish on barren rocks. Certain additional conditions are required for junior companies to become really operative. The second trend, which we take into account while making prognosis of exploration activities in this country, is the fact that when we are engaged in exploration, this is a concentration of exploration in terms of the physical volume, monetary form, around large targets. Will I have a chance to step beyond the time limit? I would request you to stay within the time. I will give you additional time during the question Q&A. Okay. I'll do my best. If we dissect it into phases, we speak about targets with the early financing of more than 500 billion rubles, shown in red, then the prospecting and exploration is done differently. There are no common trends, but from a standpoint of exploration, we can clearly see that exploration starts around single targets, large targets, and we know them well. Well, you see on this map large targets for explorations which have been commissioned or are likely to be commissioned anytime soon. And below them is numbers giving you an idea about the production in terms of ore extraction. So we did not see this period in the history of the country, and each revision of these targets gives increase in targets. And so we live in a specific period of super large mining projects. How long it will last, nobody is likely to say. Let me skip this actual results using the licenses number 2 in terms of alluvial gold and a regular ore gold deposit. These are key presumptions which were taken. You will be later on read them, but this is the forecast of the impact of the principle number 2 for licensing in terms of providing finance for exploration work. So this licenses which are received under the application number 2 and the production licenses which were a consequence of licenses number 1. So this is the result of our prognosis. The number of financing is growing, but whether such finance is sufficient to compensate for the expected reduction in intensity of exploration, considering the anticipated easing out of operations of the existing large projects, large deposits. So far, not. The answer is no. We expect in the year after the year 2023 stabilization of the financing, and it appears that the calculated numbers shown as a reduction are such that large stocks do not have sharp termination point after they completed their horizon about 5 years of so-called aftershocks. But these targets are now going to the operational production exploration, which subsoil use does not show to the state. So we believe that there will be stabilization at the level between 60 to 70 billion rubles yearly in terms of investments and continual growth of the drivers for. But so far, we don't see any drivers for this growth. We do not we haven't taken into account here in this graph non-systemic things like, for example, if we introduce enhance the taxes for mineral use. And these are my conclusions. Thank you for your patient hearing. Next presenter, two presenters. Well, let us discuss. If you don't mind, let us all questions and answers be asked at the end of the session, so that we should not deprive the speakers of the opportunity to present their opinions. Gennady, you have the floor, and Olga Vasilyevna will also support his presentation. So they will be discussing the Sukhoy Log project. It's a short, brief presentation of which can be considered the informal report of the work which we have done over the last 3 years. This large team of people did this work, and we enjoyed the best experts in the industry. The WIMS company and Oran Svetment and VPK were invited to be part of this endeavor. The best analytics were also invited, Alex and Stewart company. Our presentation was made of 2 parts. In the first part, I will tell you about the physical activities which were conducted on site and what the geological results were obtained. The second part will be presented by Olga, and Olga will tell you about the results of this work. So the history of the Sukhoy Log field starts in the middle of the 19th century, when rich alluvial deposits were obtained. Once they were processed, the interest to this project diminished until the moment when additional deposits were discovered, after which certain key idea about the prospecting criteria were formed, and of the development prospecting for deposits of such type, and it was only the question of time when until a big discovery is made. In the 20th century, in the 70s, there was a period of active exploration work, and the first 1,000 tons of resources were placed on balance. Until then, the year 2000, intensive prospecting work was conducted. Satellites were studied, and development production was studied in some of them. And the last, the concluding part is the recalculation of the resources and complex evaluation, which was done in 2007, conducted by the Snigiri Scientific Institution. Starting from 2017, the latest development started of this project. Sukhoy Log is in one of the largest alluvial provinces called in Russia after Koloma. This is the second province in this country, in the region of Bodaibo. The historic production is more than 1,000 tons, and well, Alexander tells us about the geology, the current information about Sukhoi geology. Over the period of the study of Sukhoi starting from the 60s of the 19th century, we have obtained a wealth of information. And the first phase, we faced an easy task to determine the quality of this data. So to verify the precursor data, we picked up the square site, and we drilled about 100 prospecting holes in order to verify the historic data with the current data. The result of this drilling campaign was the following. Despite the fact that the historical data, the revision data, did not correlate well enough from bore to bore, they have good correlations for the interval of the grade for more than 1 gram per ton by the assessment which you conducted within those zone of mineralizations at the cutoff ratio of 0.5 grams resulted in high repeatability at the level of 1%. So this became the key result of this work, and one of the factors which formed the subsequent drilling program in the Sukhoi region. Considering the results of the verification campaign and the complexity of the geological structure and phase method of operating of the development of this field, we developed a program for the ongoing work. The key part designed to have a grid of with 20 to 200 to 50, and generally it is 100 to 50. So the verification grid is 200 by 200, and the central part is drilled with a grid 50 by 50 meters. Looking at the license for the Sukhoi log, it is a contour which was early developed. And continuation of these resources on the surface. And the work which we have completed showed us that the key license does not limit the mineralization area, and there is prospects for growth of the reserves both sidewise and depthwise. So the next phase became the intensive work in respect of Sukhoi log and in the flanges of these deposits. So over the period of time, a lot of materials was collected, and we started by marshalling all the information, digitalization, and we arranged it in a nice, neat order. All the materials collected by our predecessors, and recent materials, recent data were quite precise and verifiable, and we made a tomography to adjust the method, and on top of that we did geochemical map, and with the use of modern analytical basis. And finally, we have created a forecast model for predictions and research which could justify the future exploration work, and to conduct exploration work not only in Sukhoi log area. And finally, the scope of drilling operations was about 47 kilometers. And as a whole, if we talk about the general volume of drilling operations, we are talking about 300 kilometers, understanding the availability of control, engineering, and geological wells. Finally, the conclusion was as the follows: we have prepared accurate geological model
which takes into account all structural factors which control the distribution of ore mineralizations and what structural elements are being played. And we have prepared a high accuracy geological model with the data, and along with new data of testing with the detailed grid, made it possible to prepare a detailed model, how modeling was prepared of the resources, and Olga is going to continue this tale. Good afternoon, colleagues. To continue our presentation, I would briefly tell you about the assessment of resources which were carried out during this revision. And as per the outcomes, we started from the time the license was acquired, and the first assessment was carried out on the legacy data. And the next data was the analysis of the results received from the revision drilling, and followed by the assessment of resources with new data done in December of 2019, when we received adequate number of new data, which allowed us to combine legacy data and new data with a fairly high level of proof. And the current assessment was published in October of 2020, together with the assessments of the ore deposits. And that assessment included the results of drilling on the deposits. The competent individual, as per JORC, our geologist. And on the given slide, you can see the first assessment of the dry log, or Sukhoy log. And we assessed the resources, which amounted to 58 million ounces as per 1,804 tons, cutoff grade 2.0 grams per ton. And the data available at that time were dated in 2007, and the basic scope and volume of all materials used for assessment was much older, and the primary documentation, the core, the one cores were not preserved up to date, and we never had a chance to retest core material to confirm the cutoff grade. And our predecessors also mentioned the errors when the cutoff grade was low. In August 2018, Paulus gave AMC the initial stage of revision works, and as per the outcomes, we carried out the analysis of legacy data, and the drilling was accompanied by the quality control in order to achieve accurate results. And the new data confirmed the results received by predecessors using the modern methods and high quality of geological exploration made it possible to receive a more accurate picture of mineralization. And you can see the distribution on the legacy basis on the right photo, new data, and it is clearly seen here that the boundary of the main zone of mineralization is quite visible, and you can see here a certain kind of a gradual transition. And as per the new drilling data, the low mineralization doesn't have a broad distribution, as was mentioned in the legacy data, and two sets of data confirmed systemic errors when the cutoff grades were low, and that was also mentioned by our predecessors in their reports. In order to assess the influence and to minimize the errors at low grades, when we did revision works, we constructed a set of testing models which demonstrated that when the boundaries are accurate, the historical or legacy data could be used to assess the resources. And on the basis of stratigraphic data and testing probes, the upper and lower boundaries were identified, and these surfaces were used to limit the influence of legacy data on the cutoff grade. And the scope of mineralization was based on the probability models, and these probability models we used only the data of the proving drilling efforts, and these were the data taken into the account, but not the interpretation data. In order to make this assessment, the so-called newly proven tests were taken, and to model the scope of mineralizations, we used the probability approach in 2-meter composites. We have given the indicators, splitting them as per the cutoff grade, 3 grams per ton. And those variograms were used. The interpolation of the block model was done on the principles of ordinary cracking, and that's how it was done. The block models, which were received as a result of the assessment with numbers higher than 0.4, defined the level of our mineralization. Once this scope of mineralization was completed, and those tests and samples which we used were taken also to model variograms, and the assessment was done by a singular cracking approach. In order to correctly reflect the scope of mineralization for this part of the model, we have chosen a lesser size of the block. The key parameters which influence the resources is the distance between the samples and the degree of influence of legacy data. On the slide, you see the final model of resources as per the 31st of May, 2020. And as a basis for this assessment, this is almost 2,000 drilled, and the wells drilled by Polis, and this is the actual assessment. It amounts to 67 million ounces, or 2,084 tons, with a cutoff rate 1.9 grams per ton. So this assessment of the resources became the assessment of the first attempt, and this attempt or assessment of mineral resources was published in October 2020 with the report on ore resources. This is 40 million ounces, or 1,244 tons, with a cutoff grade 2.3. At present, we are planning to upgrade the model based on the new data, and this data will be accepted on the patch of land 50 to 50, and we could use only new data for this kind of assessment. Thank you. Thank you. Alexander Yakubchuk will step in, and Alexander, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. In the year of 2020, this book was published. The giants, all giants of the world, Sukhoi Log, and Gennady also made his input here to have this book published. We have information about Olympiada and Kolemar, lots of articles giving coverage to different gold deposits. So here's my introduction. Allow me to make this presentation. So I'm going to talk and describe two companies, Orso Metals and Ozarga, where I'm in charge of geological exploration and to build up the bridge to what my previous colleague spoke. And perhaps it's going to be a new story. If we are talking about the claim principle, Orso company, and the presentations were already made. And this picture demonstrates what happens as of 2019, that is 16th, the first visit, and then we have found the continuation towards western direction, Sergeyevsky Golets, and we have carried out experimental extraction. The project was approved by GKZ, and the job was done by WIMPs, and we received the permission to carry out works. And you can see what is happening here in the Google map, and I will not stop at the management. Everybody could see this data and take the presentation. We are listed at the Toronto Stock Exchange, and problems which are typical for the juniors are reflected here. And here is the place where we stay. It is Zabaikalsky Krai. It is very well known in terms of alluvial gold. And Kluchevskoye, in the beginning of the 1950s, was the largest deposit in the Soviet Union. It has a fairly lengthy story. First, it was the British production in 1930. They revised the assessment in 1950s. First systemic exploration at the western extension of Kluchevskoye, then actually from the viewpoint of production, nothing happened, and some groups and Chinese investors then joined and bought 70%, and the deal was closed in 2019, and we drilled many wells. If we are talking about exploration, more than 20,000 meters, and another exploration wells were done a little later. So the resource, which is being updated of 2020, that is 1.42 million ounces as per JOC category. And we have our neighbors, Gerka Zapadna. They are involved in the production. They got a factory in the valley of the river, Kluchevskoye on the right, awaiting its bright future, and our resource is built here within this circle, painted in red. And that's how the situation changed based on legacy data. And in 2019, 2020, and what's going to be in 2022, we got a framework, and something was inferred, then it will turn to be indicated, and we will know what was oxidized, and 3 pits are reflected in red, where the production is going on. 153 kilograms were extracted. and some more is available in the stockpile. So in the Google, you can see this Google map with the layout. The information is updated. Here is the stockpile of ore. In red, these are the points where extraction was going on, and 12 kilometers of haulage routes, 12 kilometers direct distance is around 5 kilometers. So that's the real infrastructure which is used and available, and all communication is done through the mobile phone. 34 kilometers from Trans-Siberian Railroad. Railroad is covered by asphalt, and if something happens, everything from the viewpoint infrastructure, everything will be ready. In yellow, you can see all bodies. In blue, these are the dikes. I cannot demonstrate what our neighbors have, but whatever is extracted and what is in the dumps and what went to the tailings and what remained under the pit and what we added on our territory, it's going to be 370 tons of gold with the cutoff grade 1.5. And that is Klitschevskaya plus Sergeyevskaya, 3 kilometers. So this is a fairly big system, and we demonstrated last year this picture, magnetic data, yellow ovals. This is our perception how it's going to develop, and geochemical footage was done, and we selected the samples from the depth of 2 meters. We never dug any trenches. We did it manually. And more than 2,800 samples were taken. We have received 40% of analysis at present, and in yellow you can see that is the actual protrusion of the mineralizations with the cutoff grade more than 0.5 grams. And in red, it is higher grade, more than 0.26. By the fall of the year, we'll get the final results. And from Sergeyevska to the eastern corner, we will see the protrusion of 1 kilometer further. And these are the veins which were found in 1960s. When exploration was done, and 2 more kilometers should be added to those 3. And from the north, we never did any works, but the potential is always there.
And the key results as of now, such technological studies were conducted. Oxidation zone was identified. The primary sulfides are identified. The gold is associated with sulfide. The concentrate should be produced. And the GKZ was examined. These results within the next few weeks. We will publish new results. There won't be, you will not see a growth of ounces in the subsoil, but will be a redistribution of resources from the inferred into indicated resources. This is why Sergeyevsk, and then I would like to make the same presentation, another presentation using the same voice. Thank you. That will a different story, different type of metal is copper and silver. So this is a tar road between Chara and New Chara. At a distance, at the horizon, you see the type of terrain where Udakan is located. We're located at a distance of 25 kilometers beyond Udakan in the part which is closer to the Chara Depression. And for us, this differentiated terrain is not characteristic. And in terms of Udakan, we are sisters, cousins rather, I would say. So as of now, in August of 2021, we completed a evaluation of resources. We drilled about 10,000 meters of holes, and in the Soviet times, 6 kilometers bores were drilled. Well, historic of data did not contain systemic analysis of silver. So when they analyzed for copper, 60% of copper, and they use only for geometry, and did not use data for calculations of the silver resource. So based on the resource of 50 million tons, with this grade as shown on the slide, less than 1% of copper equivalent, we arrive 100,000 tons. It's 500,000 tons in copper equivalent. Of this, copper accounts for 42%, depending on the price. So if we look at Udakan, then there the silver grade is 10 gram per 1 ton. It's not great for them, but for us, silver is critical. So in principle, two metals and the way they behave determines a lot on the economics of the project. As of now, we optimized the pit and then the ground mine, both in terms of oxidized part and the mine part. So the oxidized part is present both in the pit and the mine. Sulfides are also in the mine. We have clear separation between the sulfide part and underground reserves. And in terms of economic parameters, we see the internal rate of return, and you have text the whole day. So it means that it's sufficiently high. I show it on my slide. So this is the cycle of operations. You will be able to get this presentation from our booth and study it in greater detail. And here we're in the north of the Zabaikalsky region, next to the BAM railway track. The Udakan presently is under construction. 2.8 billion rubles invested in the first phase of development to develop copper production. Udakan is shown in red, and you see large granite, and the 25 at least 25 kilometers we allocated the Unkur. We have the license for this. So this is where the key operations will be conducted. Many of the sites are not yet licensed. So there is still room for maneuver, and if you want to apply for license, you are most welcome. This infrastructure shown. The north of our resource block is located at a distance of 10 kilometers from the BAM railway track. That by road it will be somewhat more, about 20 kilometers. And the power transmission line goes via the license block, so it is sufficient in terms of power supply. This is the type of landscape which you see about 1,000 meters high, well lower than Udakan. This very thin forest you can see. If we compare Udakan and our field in the same scale, the situation is quite similar. We have better cross sections. The 80 meters is the thickness. Udakan synclinal is reversed, and in our case, 95% of the territory is covered by the morena. Morena is thickness between 0 to 150 meters, but the central part is shown as a red line. The west is an open one, is 0 meters. It's on the surface actually. and we can this is a model, a generalized model. You see the moraine present here. We have 34 mineralization shown in red. It sits upon the boundary of various packs of sandstone. It's controlled metallurgically, and there is a system of upcoming veins which provided fluid to this zone. Distribution of the grade in terms of gold, copper, and silver. Silver reproduces the pattern of copper. The richest samples of silver, 300 grams. There are rich blocks with an average content 100. In terms of the copper, there are blocks which have copper more than, the grade copper is more than 1.5%. And the southern flange is open, and it can be still developed. Explored rather. So you can see the current prices. A couple of comments about the oxidized zone. For us, it's critical to extract silver in this project. If we simply do acid leaching, we get silver, and only get copper, we won't be able to get silver. But there is a technology which is called SART. There are a number of implemented projects where it operates. Kidaberg and Yanaguchi in Peru, and elsewhere where they extract both metals. So you cyanide dyes copper and silver, you get high consumption of cyanides. Both metals are transferred into this state of sulfide, artificial sulfides in a liquid form. Then you add sulfidizators, and they are precipitate. You prepare artificial concentrate where the content of copper will be 60% and of silver 600 grams. So the problem of dispersion of silver is addressed positively. The solution then is augmented with certain process, and cyanide is reduced and returned to the process. And we are acquainted with technology. We try to reproduce this technology in Kazakhstan. We can see now that to make a heap, the most profitable optimization is to make a heap to cut down the costs, and extractions we'll be able to see using this presentation. The key gray color stands for the assessment of 2018 assessment, and at the top, at the extreme right, the peat, oxidized part. If you operate the peat quickly, it will be sufficient. It will last for about 4 years with the return after 2 years, and it can self-finance the mining, from which you'll be able to produce both oxidized and sulfide part. In this case, the whole process return will be 4 years, and the lifetime will be 14 years. In 2020, we conducted a geochemical survey, and we discovered a new outcrop at the southern flange of the anti-syncline. It has not yet been drilled, and I am coming to an end. The project can grow, potential to grow 50%, 100%. The time will show, time will tell. It's the end of my presentation. The infrastructure, we're great. So this is infrastructure. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you. Great, very engaging presentation. The next presenter is to be made by Evgeny Avtunov, Trans-Siberian Gold, Executive Director of Возрождения. Another story of exploration, but as compared with the previous presentation, this project is already being developed and gold produced. The colleagues, this presentation will do with the revival of the gold and silver mine as such mine, which by the year 2018 was supposed to last for another 3 to 4 years due to the depletion of the active resources. I'm making this presentation on behalf of our team of geologists of the company Trevozhная Zarevo, which is a subsidiary of Trans-Siberian gold, which starting from the 2019 has been working purposefully some exploration in this area, and we enhance the active reserves of this deposit by the factor of 2, thus having extended the lifetime of the project by 6 years. This slide gives you an idea that about the such a means. It's in the southern part of the Kamchatka volcanic belt, which is the fragment of specific rim, fire rim, which, as you know, the largest number of epithermical gold and silver deposits are located. However, the Kamchatka province has not yet been studied enough as compared with Pacific provinces. And this is why it is has such a great potential. As such, my deposit is a typical representative of epithermal gold and silver deposit of volcanogenic rocks with a high content of gold and silver. The mineralization was identified in the key zone and also in the eastern zone, but the operational resources allocated considering the central part where all production was concentrated. Actually, ore is processed at the factory, handling 200,000 tons a year. This is the photographic view of the Asachim deposit, production and the residential and the camp, field camp of the Asachim field. This slide describes the situation which we faced in 2018 due to the depletion of the key operations. The lifetime was limited to 3 years only. The lower hardness of the key zone, the gold grade started to deplete very quickly. That happens quite often with the subthermal fields. The economic results started to deteriorate, and another negative factor was dilution of ore, extreme dilution of ore. Earlier exploration campaigns conducted in the field did not result in positive results, and we were hampered in our efforts by huge water influx and instability of the hosting rock. The shareholders and the board of the company decided in 2018 to replace the management of the mine, and the key strategy in development of strategy which the new team proposes was as follows. They set up a purposeful exploration department staffed with experts. We solicited the help of Russian geologists from Magadan. They have great experience in operations in the field of Julietta and Kupol. And we also solicit the help of a Canadian geologist who specializes in exploration on epithermal gold and silver deposits worldwide. A program of cooperation was developed encompassing different methods of surface and aerial surveys, and big problem of core drilling was approved. Another factor for success was the right arrangement of work. Yesterday, we discussed how necessary it is to provide the geologists with all the comfortable things like modern documentation simple but good solutions. So we solicited the help of exploration geologists who were experts in this field. And they turned out to be a great help to our team. And what also was important, this department was ranked sufficiently high within the hierarchy of the company, and which befits the importance of the exploration at this point in time of our company. And obviously, of course, the exploration is at the beginning of the value-adding chain in any company. So the system of bonus gratification was introduced to reward the performance, and responsible and good, reliable contractors, drilling contractors were invited. On this slide, you can see a schematic map of ore bodies after such a deposit. You see the key zone, main zone, which is the most prolonged one, where production has been going on for a number of years. And to the east of that, you can see eastern zone, and the largest ore body there is the to number 25, as I show you. The eastern zone was always known to have great potential, but historically it was sort of ignored. The new team conducted a detailed analysis, and vein number 25, which is highlighted in red, became a target of detailed exploration. What we did over the period? We conducted aerial gravimetry and magnetic surveys, which enable us to identify good anomalies. We reviewed old, historic, and new exploration data using information-based ARGIS system. We drilled more than 7,000 meters of core drills under the standards of QA/QC. We developed a grid of something between 50 by 50 meters, which is in line with the appropriate method. And in 1919, we identified vein 25N. It is the northern flange of the known ore vein with the average content grade 30 grams per ton.
So we cut it to 90 grams per ton. So and 320 ounces were added into the balance, and that was confirmed in line with JORC and GKZ code. Now the mining operations are carried out, and we see that these mining works confirm these assessments both in cutoff grade and protrusion. So the life of the mine was extended to the numbers of 6 years. And it is necessary to mention it was $19 per one added ounce of resources. So we have here a selective analysis on the samples for the year of 2020. So they are well spread in this ore body, high cutoff grade, and metrogram exceeds 50 or sometimes even 100 micrograms. Here you can clearly see in the vein 25 how the contour lines of the ore bodies change. And that was the difference in 2018. That's the only ore body in the south part. That's all we know about this vein. And 2 years after that, we draw the most effective pictures, and we continue the movement to the north. And interesting results we continue to receive, and this is still open, and no contour lines were drawn yet. Here you can clearly see the resource base of the enterprise in several years, and you can clearly see in 2019 it received a critical low value, and thanks to the efforts of the team, the situation changed, and now the company is having enough resources to work several years more. But the story is not finished yet on the exploration, because the ore body zone was not delineated, and we have revealed new potential ore bodies. And it is important to mention that the new shareholders, they support the program of extension of resources, so the story of such a mine will continue. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. So the topic of the next presenter, Vasily Makarov, will tell us about it himself. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, yes, the title is a title, but I don't think nothing difficult is inside. So the digital topic, and I wanted to share some of our ideas and assumptions, and also some examples related to that concerning the numbers. Digitalization has become part of our life as geological exploration. I'm not talking about digitalization in technical meaning of the word, but there are certain moments which develop certain questions, and digitalization, in our opinion, is, yes, we have to go digital. What could be digitalized, and here in the presentation it was said, let's interconnect stratigraphy and documentation, and these things are incompatible to a certain extent. I believe that geological science is not a science, it is an art, and geological discovery is like a painted picture of an artist, and actually every geological expert has an opinion of his own, and because every geologist has his own vision. It is exactly like artists paint their pictures, and that's why, as I say, yes, we have to go digital. This is the data of analytics, remote method, geophysics, what could be measured, the digital photography, etc. And I wanted to give two examples And as the geophysical methods are being used, there are certain fundamental things. I'm not going to dwell on the details. The top is the abnormal conductivity and magnetic map, a fairly known huge deposit. And on the top picture, you can see that the objects are chosen with approximation to these abnormal conductors. And this is also one of the deposits, and you can see the ore-bearing channels. And some aspects, yes, we have taken them into account. I'm not going to read all these things, but I like the definition which was used by Ovchinnikov when we have a diversity of sources and metals. They're coming from standard solution, etc. And if we adhere to the basics, non-linear metallogenic approach, the picture looks clear. So these two deposits, I'm not going to talk about these names, but Vayan-Yurachi deposit, we have received lots of golden objects, and there are also small objects and no huge ones. However, the geological position, but the conditions and the possibility of forming large objects are almost the same. And as an example, we have made the analysis. We singled out what are we going to find in terms of morphology, then geology and geophysics, tectonics, and magnetic exploration. And this is digital. Yes, that could be measured, and it will be the same. What we see the area of conductor, and that could be contoured in terms of volume to find the length and width. Parameters are known, and we here is also a magnetic map which also matches these patterns, and these are forecast resources. They are chosen as P2, but I would call it productivity, and this productivity brings us to this kind of assessment, 50 tons, and I believe that this is a more correct assessment. When we assess the whole volume, we know the parameters, we know the grade, as compared with things when we orient ourselves on several ore body points, which could be random. And now this is a digitalized characteristics of the deposit. Second, deposits, I am not giving the names because there are some commercial issues, and we are not interested specifically in that. This is the Eastern Sayani, very well explored long before, and if you analyze this geological map, it's fairly primitive. There is intrusion, the contact with the Cambrian infusions, and then there is a forecast as per this kind of a boundary. And the digits we have only at the place of block model. But so they have defined and estimated, they drilled the bores and wells and got a certain volume of deposits which characterize the central part. And what is drawn on the geological map, these are assumptions, and there are some common boundaries. However, they do not correspond to our goals and targets and assessments. And we are doing almost the same picture. We study, and we see the basic ore in the central part will be overlaying the area of the conduit. And the second picture, we have carried out magnetic footage, and 50,000 variant here will not be appropriate. We see in the magnetic field a certain band from north to west. And most of the objects are related in these tectonic structures, and we see the same. And that makes it possible for us to change the scope of the forecast to the northwest and to the southeast. And I believe we are continuing these efforts. And now I would like to complete my presentation and make the following statements. When we are talking about digitalization, it is differing from what was before. You can't even compare this stratigraphic of suites, and we get the numbers and we try to match what was invented before. And I found some publications, those people who are working with intrusions and making different forecasts. And when we study tectonics and movement of lithospheric plates, this work is devoted to the exploration, and everything is well done in terms of digital data, nicely arranged and from there I can tell you and quote the last phrase. So thus, as a result of geochronological exploration of this complex, we confirmed the age confirmed and given by our predecessors. But if you didn't confirm the age, so what kind of attitude or relationships it has towards the exploration efforts? It has no relevance to the amount of gold in this deposit. And I once again would like to reiterate that the digit, and you have to be very cautious and to study and learn digital characteristics measured now or were measured before. You have to be absolutely sure that those data was properly chosen. Stratigraphy, chronology are the fundamentals here. And there is also, but I will talk separately about the story related to one deposit as part of the question and answer session. As far as digits are concerned, and we will talk positively, Alexander Frolov will tell us about solution of sequent for the branch. Thank you, colleagues. Nice to welcome you here. I would like to tell you about the sequel company. We analyze continuously the use of different types of PO, and we see that many companies, they have a demand on seamless use of geological data, be that collection, moving towards modeling, so that we could collect the data and have them modeled, not to lose the data during the import of data during different operations. I'm going to tell you briefly about the system which we developed. And I'll also brief you on the following facts. Mining Consulting analyzed the discovery of the deposits at different scales, about 4,000 deposits, and we see the graph, what methods revealed mineralizations and led to the discoveries. So that's the methods on the left to find the boundaries, and on the right those the methods used to find the place for the first exploration well. And if we could use sequent solutions with this graph, they're used for the most part of the methods which led to discoveries. If we go further, they could be also used in different purposes and directions. And sequent is very well known on geological modeling, but this is not the only solution. And in the last period of 5 years, we realized that the companies would like to work in the same ecosystems, and we buy those companies to overlap those niches. When working with the geological data, we acquired the flagships GeoStudio AGS program or software, and Imago. This is the cloud platform to work with the core images they're processing. And in the last 5 years, we did a lot to develop our ecosystem. Now it is being finalized and captures lots of geosciences. And our solutions could be used through the whole life cycle of the deposit. Now we are talking about discoveries and exploration. We have prepared a booklet, and should you be interested, you can approach our booth and read it.
I would like to make a brief review of solutions applicable in our system for junior. First of all, it's the MINEX deposit. It's a cloud-based solution for collection and storage of geological data. You can use this software in making the field entries and export them to the cloud-based storage, and then load down into Unifrog for geological simulation or any other software for this purpose. Well, the fragment is Leapfrog for geological simulations. I think all of you know this software. This is the flagship of our company, but in the brochure, which I mentioned a minute ago, we say that the geological model before you go to the field should already be created. There is no more. You should not stick to the paradigm that the geological model is something which emerges at the end of the campaign. A geological model, when you do the work correctly, is created at the outset of the work. It's a conceptual concept, then it is augmented and enriched and expanded and use it. So the next solution is the solution for processing geophysical data. Oasis montage. I think many of you know that. It's a known, recognized standard in the geophysical say community. Quite often it happens in such a way that geophysical data are interpreted in the wrong way. The Oasis montage is a very convenient module, as a boxy, which enables to recalculate magnetic field and make the inversion of geophysical data and to relate it to the apparent magnetic sensitivity, which is easier to interpret than a simple magnetic anomaly, which may be of dubious nature, as a matter of fact. We have a solution target. It's a curtailed version of Oasis montage. It has the same montage but costs less, much sufficiently less than that. You understand the specific environment which junior companies operate, and the bridge connecting all the elements of the system is the central, which enables all individual packages of software within our environment to interact among themselves. That helps you to transfer data from one application to another seamlessly. It looks like that. Central is a cloud-based solution. Other applications are attached to that, and this center can store physical models and other data. Central saves all the changes occurring and enables you to store all your projects, data related to your project. And this slide gives you an idea about the ties, one of the possible ties implemented via the Central Center. For example, Oasis montage is connected with the Leapfrog via the central environment and see what kind of data can be transferred directly. Only with a couple of clicks of mouse, and then you specify a geological model based on the geophysical data. So that's the end of my bottom of my back, and we'll be only happy if you make new discoveries using our solutions. Thank you. Thank you. And the last presentation is Sergei Petrov, General Director of WIMS. He shared with us the formula of success of the modern exploration. Sergei Viktorovich, you have the floor.
Я прошу
I
прощения, сейчас
apologize.
запустят
I
мою
will
презентацию.
launch the presentation momentarily.
За возможность, в общем-то,
I
доложить.
thank you for the chance
Просто у меня
to
совпало
address you.
оппонирование
It
диссертации в
coincided
Казанском университете.
event
Буквально
with
через час я этим
my
займусь здесь.
responsibility in the Kazan
Итак, ну вот как
University.
мне, как преподавателю
As a
университета,
professor of the
приходится
university,
следить за современными
I
тенденциями
follow
глубокой
modern
разведки и
trends in the
рассказывать об
geological
этом
exploration and to
подрастающему поколению
share this
геологов.
information with the future geologists in our university. On the other hand,
Моя компания, в
my
которой я участвую,
company in
LIMS,
which
уже
part of
несколько лет
LIMS
проводит собственную
has been
геологоразведочную
conducting
работу.
geological exploration for a number of years, and that means that we decided to develop a certain program which the company would follow.
Я вам сейчас
And
предлагаю
I will
некое
share
такое
with
очень
you
краткое
a
сообщение,
brief
которое
review
родилось в
of
результате анализа
this
результатов
analysis
работ
of certain
за
exploration campaign conducted by us over the last 10 or 15, 20
Я прошу
years.
прощения, это
I
мой взгляд,
apologize for my
немножко
subjective
утрированная, немножко облегченная
view.
версия.
It may
Ну,
be a
возможно,
somewhat
снимет некое
simplified
такое
say view on the way to success, but nevertheless it may still be of practical use for some members. I would request, yes, this is the next slide. So looking at the results of the geological exploration,
скупым строкам отчетов, понимая, что
we understand that the formula of present discovery is simple one. The majority of them is done by drillers. Well, geophysicists and geochemists cannot make discoveries by intervals are given by drillers. So routine process on the slide is shown. It looks as follows. The prospective anomalies and the precursors obtained with a variety of methods are studied, and the potential is proved by certain studies.
На этих аномалиях
These
ставится
anomalies
заверка, обычно
is
теми же
verified by the
способами,
same
методами,
methods
с небольшими
with the certain
вариациями.
variations,
Батюшки снова обнаруживают
and then we
аномалии.
see
Что с
certain
ними делать?
anomalies.
Ставят
What to do with that?
буровые программы
So then
по
drilling
заверке этих
program
аномалий. Ну а дальше
started to
возникает
verify
уже
those programs.
дилемма. Если
And then we see a
результат
dilemma.
негативный,
If
то
the
создается
result
некий
is
такой
negative,
джорд-панигирик
then a
о
jerk
высокой
panegyric is spread about the
перспективности
high
и, соответственно,
probability,
последует с продажей
and
следующему недропользователю. В ином
the
случае
state is sold.
осуществляется еще
Otherwise,
несколько программ
and some
сетевого
other
бурения,
programs of grid-based drilling is conducted.
делается месторождение,
Field is developed.
результат чаще
The
всего
results most
положительный,
often than not is
результат чаще всего
positive.
положительный, но в большинстве
However,
случаев
in
он,
the
в общем-то,
majority of cases,
вымышленный,
it's
с натянутыми
convoluted
промышленными ресурсами,
as
часто
a
откровенно
result.
некоммерческими.
Sometimes the results are not
Следующий слайд
viable
в
for
качестве
commercial operation.
примера
And the next slide gives you
ситуацию на
an
мировом
idea about
рынке
situation in the
ресурсов
world market of the
редкоземельных элементов. Я с
rare
2015
earth
года мониторю
resources.
ситуацию.
From 2015, I have been monitoring this situation of 75 projects, which by the year 2015 were online. I calculate the growth of the useful resources they give each year. So by now, only two are operated. Those are old mines, which were mothballed as a result of the Chinese dumping. And now the activities of mines looks like slow death. But nevertheless, well, the Western companies managed to somewhat dilute the monopoly of China from 85 to 79%. But the new data about the new introductions, no one was implemented so far, but all those projects do exist until now. They are rated on the stock exchange and they are financed. So this diagram shows you this. So the result conclusion is that the introduction of such operation of such declarative discoveries is subjective, and it is tied up to the ongoing developments in the market, and of course the will, desire of investors. So this way, in fact, is good for junior companies because it allows them to exist for a long time. It is clear that against the background of such planned economy, there do exist such an extraordinary events which result in discoveries of new targets, which are of commercial nature. Let us consider a number of such cases, like the one shown here, and the experience gained in such projects is worthy duplicating. The first case is the non-standard thinking in a standard environment. The middle of 2010, a project of Rutilovых ecologies was developed in Norway. The idea is simple enough. So the recovered value of this poor titanium ore, rutil concentrate, is equal to equal of the economic viability of the richest ore of the other type. So recently this project became active, and I believe that within a number of years it will be launched in full scale. A very unexpected discovery, and these unexpected discoveries are due to thorough studies conducted of the substance composition. This is the case when you were looking for one thing, and then but you found something different. The most striking example is the discovery of a large province of Scandia ore associated with the erosion, wind erosion ores in Australia. Presently, they explored about 6 large targets of the Scandian ore, capable of producing about 500 tons of this metal, which is more costlier than gold. But the industry doesn't need that much of Scandian. Next slide. Rio Tinto started to operate in the Balkans in order to strike the boron deposits. They did not expect to find a lithium bonus as the lithium borate, which in fact form a large, gigantic deposit of lithium boron ore. This is one of the greatest, most economically beneficial projects. This is a project in Serbia. There are, in fact, many such examples. Chinese geologists discovered the largest tungsten ore deposit in Sushi, the resources of which exceed, and quality also exceed the summarized resources worldwide, but they found it where traditionally copper and Scandian ore were propagated, and they were not prospecting for tungsten. Such unexpected things do happen. However, sometimes such unexpected discoveries are well prepared.
Ой, что-то он не весь как-то. Спасибо.
In this case, striking example is the situation which is in line with the geological models. As an example, I would like to cite the company Vilda, which bore 150 boreholes. Until the moment, they obtained the greatest interval in borehole 150, number 150. And this is a company Sol Gold, which started its operation in the Ecuador Andes in about 25 years. Nothing was discovered. A lot of anomalies were discussed, verified, non-verified, of different types, and the company conducted verification work, built up its own model of the deposit, and went farther than that. In the site located to it, they built mineralogical model of development of metasomatic zoning. As a result of that, 4 anomalies
закрещены, поскольку это корневые части.
Well, 3 were discarded, and one part was considered as one anomaly was considered as the most prospective one. I showed it to our practicing exploration geologists, and they said that they decided to drill from the northern anomalies, and they like them more, not considering this mineralogical mapping as a result of development of the somatic mineralization of the porphyry system. Next slide. The people in this company went further, basing on the anomaly chosen. They built up a geological structural model of potential target, the development of the mineralization of the ore phase.
задали скважины, 15 скважин,
So
которые,
they drilled 15 boreholes, which they wanted to verify the geological kinetic models. And in well number 4, in bore number 4, they received 200 meters interval. In the 12th borehole, they conducted a world record of section for more than 1.5 kilometers of ore with the grade of copper equivalent. The next slide.
Ну и вот, да, ну в качестве вывода следует, наверное,
As a conclusion, I would like to perhaps quote
пространное суждение, что в современной геологоразведке
saying that modern discoveries in modern exploration makes discoveries based on the achievements of the modern fundamental science. However, unexpected discoveries also do occur. I would not like to dwell for a long time on this particular aspect. It is not possible to plan the discovery of a giant site if you even drill implement a drilling company the grid 1, 2 by 2. So success in the exploration is a function of distribution of sudden unexpected value, which are influenced by geological and kinetic modeling, thorough study of the substance and the course of the exploration, non-standard approach to the mineral input resources, and there are a number of criteria which could also be discussed separately. Financial freedom, as in the case of MBD mining, clear understanding of the objective of the geological exploration campaign, like discovery of specific, deposit in the Chile and planning and perseverance in driving towards the goal. So one should agree definitely with the lines of Alexander Pushkin, who says in this poem what I have been saying in my presentation. Thank you very much for my presentation. I have to run. I will not be able to participate in the QA. I have to run to address my, professional duty as a professor in the university.
Спасибо большое, Сергей Викторович.
Thank you, Sergey Viktorovich. Great. We appreciate. Colleagues,
Можем переходить к вопросам-ответам.
Shall we engage in a Q&A session, but I want to ask a question. We have only 1 minute before lunch. Do we prepare to exchange food for knowledge?
Задержимся. Тогда спасибо. Тогда второй вопрос. Дадим Олегу Казанову
Do we
договорить
give the
самое
chance to
интересное
Oleg Kazanov to complete his presentation about the prognosis?
Вернуть слайд и сказать чуть подробнее. Дадим? Да. Welcome. Начнем с последнего слайда, да? Как лучше. Пожалуйста, первую презентацию, самый конец.
Давай, твоя очередь.
Коллеги, да я практически все успел.
Colleagues, I think I have done almost everything.
Можем на него посмотреть.
Yes. Let's see what we have.
Если хотите еще раз, критические моменты, прогноз влияния заявительного принципа.
So the influence of the so-called by the claim principle for the financing of the exploration works. So
это, в общем, есть элемент прогнозной модели.
So these are the element of the forecast model,
Элементами этой модели является
and the elements would be effectiveness of financial efforts, and less than half of sites are being financed.
причем совершенно разная эффективность для рассыпного золота.
Efficiency both for core objects and placer gold, objects which are being financed, and the rest of parameters are as follows. You can combine all these in a fairly intricate structure. These are simplified. The average timing for exploration works
вычислены две моды. Первая мода двухлетняя, вторая мода пятилетняя.
Two modes, 2 years and 5 years. So as a result, this event
Прогнозирование эффекта
made it possible to forecast to have this kind of a picture, and here exploration is demonstrated. This is the license which emerged. So
это то, что возникло в
what
результате
emerged
успехов этих заявительных лицензий. Ну и вот
of
последний
success
итоговый
and
суммарный
the
прогноз.
summarized forecast.
Может быть, чуть-чуть подробнее на нем остановиться. Вот светло-синий верхняя
The
часть.
light blue, the
Это эффект
upper
от добывания
part,
текущих
this is the
проектов, которые сейчас
effect
находятся в разведке.
of leaving the scene those objects which are under explorations.
Некий срок средней амортизации.
This is the average amortization during 5 years, as I mentioned,
настоящие успешные и крупные
that
объекты, они
successful sites
последствия в виде
they
продолжений, флангов, горизонтов. И вот сейчас
would
трудно, на
have
самом
a
деле, сказать, где
continuation.
заканчивается
It's
разведка,
difficult
где
to say
начинается
where the
эксплуатация.
exploration
Эвфемизм, опережающий по
is
разведке, по сути,
finished
правила
and the
разведки,
project
по
continues to
которым
develop.
пользователь не видит необходимости просто писать проекты, отчитываться.
Here are the results which do not require any further input,
Встречное
and
замещение вот
also
этого
replacement
суммарным накопленным эффектом
accrued
принципа. Вот пока у нас
result
получается, что,
from
несмотря
the
на то,
claimant
что
principles.
растет, нам его
Despite of the fact that the claimant principle is growing, but the result is not suffice, and there are certain reservations that we started these principles in 2014, and the large subsoil users, they joined it a little later. And I'm sure that the effect from the work of the large users, and they invest a lot of money, perhaps the influence will be more prominent. So that's the kind a simple mathematical forecast. So these are the numbers for 22, 23. There will be a growth tendency. It depends on subjective factors and on royalty numbers. Thank you.
Огромное спасибо.
Thank you very
Вопросы?
much.
Да, Тамар. Сейчас, секундочку только, коллеги. У меня будет большая просьба. Только в микрофон и начинать
Only to microphone
самого себя
and
и
introduce
того,
yourself.
к кому адресуете вопрос. Пожалуйста. Тамара Александровна.
Головина Тамара, компания «Полиметалл».
Polymetal, Golovina Tamara, I would like to thank all participants because successful projects were presented, and we would like to have more and more presentations of the kind. And the question to Oleg Vladimirovich for the topic of juniors is a burning topic, and we work in Polymetal, and we saw that from the inside and came to the similar conditions, and we don't have too many junior companies. Their numbers are not enough to make a serious input. In your forecast, you never have taken into account the share of juniors, or you expect that there will be more juniors, and if so, where do you catch up with these forecasts? So from what we saw currently, our state bodies licensing of 2021 will be less intensive as compared with 2020. We are on a kind of a plateau, and that's why we have chosen the average level, and the number of licenses would correspond to the average numbers of 2018, 2020. Thank you. Any other questions?
Агапитов Дмитрий Гитами. Василий Павлович.
A question to Vasily Pavlovich. I agree that geology and exploration is very important, and it is a practical thing. And in your opinion, in 10 years, Tamara yesterday led a very interesting session. In your opinion, which directions for digitalization will be of interest, like a tool? But in the, let's say, artistic part of exploration, what about the digitalization? We are taking a sample and with most accurate methods, we have identified the grade. And this is accurate. And then we are taking the description of the core of the well. And it was actually written that it was dark gray material. And that will be impossible to describe digitally because the shades of the colors might be seen different by the different people. And Mr. Kornilov, he knows this program that the core documentation, this digital photograph is combined with another photogram. It is done by the machine, and this is done accurately. I'm telling, we have to include the subjectivism. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Следующий вопрос, пожалуйста.
Next question, please. A question as a practitioner and junior.
Вопрос, то есть, понимаю, что ищете финансирование, то есть в какой форме это
in which form you need a minority company, or you want to sell also metals to somebody else, or you want something else? It was the question I was asked every day. When are you going to sell? It is not possible to predict the point of sales. Junior, already it was mentioned here, then it will be transformed into the producing company. Those who are involved in exploration, they are different people. They wouldn't be able to plunge into the production. And I think exploration is more attractive for me. It depends on the circumstances, who your neighbors are, and it's there are many scenarios as far as us, as both companies, Soul Gold, they got the ore body. They started at 500 meters. We have everything on top, and this is in the pit, and it's difficult to attract investments in Russia. And if you take the Canadian Stock Exchange, actually 75% of the money are coming from the United States, with the psychology of the game players in Las Vegas. And when they look upon Russia, they are not prepared to make these investments. And in Russia, you don't find people like prepared for gaming. And you told us that you are going to have a platinum project. Is it going to be a new company? It's a private company. This is the company which received the license in May, but you were not disappointed that you are on a Canadian, we are among 2,000 companies on the Canadian Stock Exchange, but London better understands Russia. And Kinross is a Canadian company and actually is successfully working in Russia. And I believe London has bad relations with Russia. And of course, it's very difficult for the juniors to work in Russia. Thank you, colleagues.
Волнуются за наше здоровье, но выбор пока был в пользу не еды, а знаний. Артур, тут все решили. Но продолжаем менять знания на еду. Тогда следующий вопрос, пожалуйста.
Последний вопрос. У нас следующая сессия.
Ага, тогда последний вопрос.
The last question.
Хорошо, тогда еще раз позвольте поблагодарить
So
замечательно.
thank you once again, the speakers, for excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Перерыв.